What's up? I am Machine Gun Kelly, and look, I know Halloween is gonna suck this year because there's no trick-or-treating and all that, but I've got a treat. There's a musical podcast that I made with my friends 24K Golden, Ian Dior, and Dana Dentata, and Satan. Well, Satan's not my friend, but Tommy Lee is, and Tommy Lee is playing Satan. But don't just take it from me. Tell him, Satan.
Thanks, dude. It feels great to be playing Satan on this podcast. Listen to Halloween in Hell on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts on.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
For the week of Thursday, March 12th, Joe Biden is running away with the Democratic nomination. Coronavirus is running through the country, and Politicon is running this podcast from Gold Diggers in Los Angeles, California, with a live studio audience who all want to know, how the heck are we going to get along? I'm Clay Aiken, and this is Politicon's How the Heck Are We Gonna Get Along? Joining us this week, author and humorist Joel Stein, comedian Jena Friedman, Republican political consultant Rick Wilson, and new media pioneer and U.S. Air Force veteran Wayne Dupree. We have an illustrious panel with us this week, all of whom were... What? Yeah, I've never used a microphone before. Technology. This is my first time with one of these. I had 5 notes on it already. A great panel who have braved the coronavirus. It is quite a bit different for us this week because I flew in from North Carolina this morning through Minneapolis. The airport quieter than it was a week before. Wayne
came in from Atlanta, and one of the workers said that you know what, it's less people today than it was yesterday. So and you could tell that a lot of people weren't. It wasn't robust. You didn't see a whole lot of people there. So yeah, they're starting to wonder, and they're starting to freak out.
There's concern for sure.
I came from a half a mile away, and I think everyone here is an idiot for being here. Really, truly.
And now
stupid.
A half a mile away in LA typically would take you what, 30 minutes?
7 hours, but it still was really, really dumb to do this. Yeah,
that's crazy.
You had to eat a Sherpa at the first landing stage.
Yeah.
Why do you think, we were talking a little bit about this, the audience and I before, a little bit about the coronavirus. Wayne and I talked a little bit about it. What do you think, Jenna, why are people freaking out more about this than maybe other H1N1 swine flu? Why do you think there's... the NBA just canceled the season. Yeah. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson have it. I mean, Tom Hanks has coronavirus.
I mean, you're answering your question. Why are people freaking out about something that's killing people? I think it's more real than and it's just more widespread than other infectious diseases that we've seen in the past decade. And then on top of that, social media obviously plays a role in amplifying any information.
The answer, Clay, is math.
Yeah, you think is it math? I mean, or is there are we missing anything else that we've had in past virus scares?
The other thing we're missing right now is competent, calm, capable, transparent leadership at the top of the ticket. And if we had any other president in the last 50 years, I would feel a lot better because you know that Barack Obama or George Herbert Walker Bush or Jimmy Carter or Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan would not have gone out and said, hey, there's nothing to worry about, man. No big deal. It's going to be gone in a week. We got a vaccine coming. They would not have gone out and lied. And unfortunately, Trump can't stop himself from doing those things. And so this corrosion of public confidence in what's going on leaves or generates this giant vacuum behind it, and everybody's scared as hell because they're seeing things on the news that don't sound at all like what the leadership in Washington is saying.
But Rick, starting tonight, Trump made a rule that you cannot fly to the U.S. from Europe, although you can fly from the UK. So people are now going to be forced to transfer planes.
Sure,
before
of course,
coming
because
here.
what could go wrong with having more people jammed into a disease-ridden tube? The real thing, though, that I think you should have great confidence in tonight is the president announced he's putting Jared Kushner in charge of plague response. So basically, if you remember the opening scene of 28 Days Later, with the streets of London filled with trash, you're going to have that. If it's Jared in charge, the apocalypse is upon us.
Wait, do you think he's handling things better than you would have hoped, or worse than you would have hoped? Or?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, I disagree with Rick because we don't know what any other president would have done because this hasn't happened before like this. So we really don't know.
We can guess.
Well, Nixon and Ford, Nixon and Ford both had much more considered responses to swine flu in the 70s. I know that's a long time
And
for all
even
of us.
President Obama during the
And with
Ebola epidemic,
yeah.
he was really on it.
I don't have to know what another president did. I know that this one told us not to worry about anything and the stock market would be fine, and then went on TV tonight and said, there's a panic and I'm closing the airports. Like,
but you know what though?
Any person
Except
can't
the whitest
shift
one.
that much in one day.
But
it's conflicting messages.
But you also have to remember if he doesn't say anything at all. I mean, okay, fine. If he got up there and said, you know what? It's true. You're still going to have massive panic. You're still going to have. You have to have somebody to at least say, listen, this is what's happening. Let's try to calm this thing down. And he has said that. Let's calm this thing down. Now, I'm not saying that everything that he has done is right, okay? But he is, I mean, even,
what is the thing
even
that was right?
I am not in the market. Well, actually, I am in the market, so I am looking at my thing on up and down. So I know that.
Don't look tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. Well, actually, I tried to take my stuff out, but it wouldn't, whatever. But he's snake bitten is what. In this situation, whatever he does, people are going to fuss. Whatever he doesn't do, people are going to fuss. So, I mean, pick your poison, cherry pick whatever you want to do.
What is the thing he did right that you like?
He tried to calm the whole situation
Yeah, I mean, does
to
Wayne
start
have a
off
point?
with.
Does
You
Wayne not
have
a
to
point
do that.
That most presidents do try, at the very least. We'll let you go, Joel.
You
most
have to.
presidents do try, at the very least, to calm the markets by allowing people to have some confidence that things aren't so bad that they need to sell all their stocks. I mean, is there not an argument for that sort of reassurance being necessary in a leader?
No. This isn't about the markets. This is about people dying.
Right.
This is about people shouldn't be gathering in large groups. This is about telling people basic science, and that is not what happened.
If the market crashes, if the market crashes, what
You're
happens
selling
to
on the dips. I don't want to talk about the market with you.
But if it happens, what happens?
What happens when the market crashes?
Yeah.
I don't know. It happens like every 10 years. There's a recession and there's a recovery. I mean, not that things shouldn't be done, but I mean, when you're talking about a health crisis, the market's not your number one concern.
But we haven't had these two happen at the same time like this either. Like this.
On the
Have
bright
we?
side,
Have
though,
we? Yes? No?
How did the markets do in 1918?
Well, I was going to say, yeah. I mean, the larger issue is everything we're talking about now is kind of moot because, fortunately, coronavirus is not immune or is immune to fake news. So we'll
It doesn't
get
follow
to see
Trump
for
on Twitter.
ourselves how bad it really is.
It's not really immune to fake news because if you tell people it's fine to gather in large groups, it will spike, and the healthcare system and our other systems won't be able to handle it.
Now,
there were a lot
the
of
virus
this.
will do what it's going to do.
There were a lot
the
of
virus
I hear
will
what
do
you're
very
saying.
different things if we go to events like this that we shouldn't be at.
But the idea of early social distancing and, as they say, flattening the curve is something a lot of other countries are doing very aggressively. Whereas, we spent 2 weeks where he said things like, "It's just the flu. Don't worry about it. We'll be down to 0 cases in a few days." He said that from the White House. He said, "We've got 5 cases. We'll be down to 0 in a few days." That wasn't a good lie.
Well,
that was a bad lie.
Okay,
And when people cannot rely on him, and I don't know if anybody's heard this, but Donald Trump has a reputation for not exactly hewing to the line of the absolute truth on the daily.
You mean like other presidents?
There's no other, Wayne, I'm kind of a historian of presidential elections and presidents. There has never been a president in our history of this country with a level of mendacity to rival Donald Trump, not even in the ballpark of it.
How did we get in Iraq again?
The fact that we went into
still here?
Iraq, the fact that we went into Iraq. The fact that we went into Iraq.
No.
Based on wait a second, Wayne.
There isn't a fact that we went into Iraq. It was a lie. It was a lie.
Based on a piece of faulty intelligence is different.
It was a lie. It was a lie.
Than a president.
Was it a lie?
Than a president saying 20,000, having 20,000 lies in the first 3 years of his administration.
It was a lie.
Wayne. It was a piece of.
I want to stay a little bit on coronavirus because we could certainly go into, things that happened 15, 20 years ago and talk about them forever. What would you do differently, Jena?
I think we should be listening to experts and looking at other countries that have had the outbreak. It was really interesting to kind of see how South Korea responded versus how Italy's responding, and then the aftermath of their responses right at the beginning. There were issues with the coronavirus tests that set us back a little bit. And Trump did not allocate money to infectious disease and pandemic response. And so, up until maybe really recently, and I think it's just about, I'm a comedian, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I do think...
But you play one on TV.
But I play one on TV. But we are in a different moment, to your defense, we're in a different moment now where because of the internet there's a lot of misinformation, and there's also a lot of information, and there's a lot more transparency than there was during the Iraq War. And so people are able to see stuff on their own. A month ago, you could see videos coming out of Wuhan where what the government was saying didn't match what people were showing you on video. And on top of that, there was also fake news. So I think I have a friend, he's an infectious disease specialist. He's on speed dial. I talk to him all the time, especially now. And I think it's really important to listen to experts and talk to experts. And, most people who are in this room will most likely be okay, but it's vulnerable people, immunocompromised. It's elderly people who are going to really be in trouble. It's people who need to go to the hospital who are going to be in trouble. And I do think limiting social gatherings, maybe canceling some shows I have coming up, is a correct response to what's going on. If we can't trust our leadership, we have to take it upon ourselves to try to...
The leadership problem is also that we've just told every bad actor in the world that this is our government's response to bioterrorism. So if you want to attack us with a bioterrorist attack, we don't have a plan. We don't have enough beds. We don't have any system in place. So I just think this is a failure of our government.
I know you don't want to talk about the economic stuff as much, Joel, but we have a question from the audience that I think is relevant because we're going to kind of flow into some of the political ramifications of this too. So, Mike.
Well, one thing that just came to my mind as you all are up here talking is I think one thing for me, and I think a lot of people subconsciously know this, that our president never takes accountability for anything. I think that that's kind of the number one thing. It's he never takes accountability for it, and it's okay, who's going to actually take some accountability? Because I think it's harder to solve problems if you don't take responsibility and accountability for it. And I think he has focused a lot on other things, the tertiary things, how the market's doing versus how people's health are doing, to a large degree. And I just read a story where he's asking Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury guy, to try to get Jerome Powell out, or he doesn't like what Jerome Powell is doing because he's not lowering the interest rates enough for his satisfaction. So again, I think it's accountability, and I think you don't really see any direct looking at the problem. It's, looking at side issues a lot.
So Jerome Powell's not lowering the interest rate as quickly as the president would like. Certainly he's, even to your argument, Wayne, he's doing some of these things that he's doing to hopefully stabilize the market. Mm-hmm. Now, we entered a bear market this week for the first time in 20 years, I think, or more. So the economy's not responding the way he seems to want it to respond. How is this going to affect him in this election year when he was running on the economy?
Going back to accountability, because I know when I do my show, the way that I called out the Obama administration is the same way that I call out the Trump administration, because you can't be seen as being stupid on not being fair down the middle. And I know that there was lack of accountability many times in the Obama administration, and I have seen President Trump not be accountable for a whole lot of things in this one too. But when we're talking about the experts, when I saw some experts I mean, I hope they were experts that were sitting around that table last week. I don't know if they were.
They were all men, which is, a silver lining to all of this. They're going to be the first
Were
to
they
go.
experts? I mean, if they were men, but were they experts in their field? I don't know. But, they were talking about how long it would take for...
bring this plane in for a landing here for me, Wayne.
The thing coming in.
How's this going to affect his election this year? The economy not doing as well clearly today and this week as he'd hope, and then I'll come to you, Rick.
We talked about this, and I said, if he runs as an outsider, that they try to impeach him, he has a better chance of winning as running as an outsider from the swamp.
Sitting president running as an outsider.
And it's never happened before.
Amazing.
And they gave him that opening.
I got to be frank with you, though, because what I'm hearing is still not necessarily an answer to how's the economy going to affect him. Instead, we need to run as an outsider instead. So I'm going to throw it to Rick because I want to get your response on how that's going to help him or hurt him.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fundamental predicate of Donald Trump's presidency has been, but the market. The market's fine. Everything's good with the market. We looked away from the fact that the Federal Reserve has been juicing the market for 12 years now. And I disagreed with it when it was George W. Bush. I thought they were giving way too much of the market stimulus to the banks and Wall Street. Weirdly, I'm a conservative, but I don't like crony capitalism. Those guys had responsibility for the bad investment choices they made, but we bailed them out. And a lot of that bailout came from Federal Reserve spending. All through Obama, the Federal Reserve kept pumping liquidity into the system. All through Trump, they're pumping liquidity into the system. Well, we've reached the point where they're not, where the return on the liquidity juicing is now de minimis. There's very little impact. The other day, the Federal Reserve cut rates by a quarter point, and the market did great for a few hours, and then dumped back out again. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be a much wider economic set of ramifications from this. It is going to put us into at least a mild recession. Recessions are not good for presidents. And part of Trump's brand, and look, we did focus groups in 15 and 16 asking regular voters, like, why do you want to support Trump? And they were all like, he's a businessman. He knows how to make the economy run. He's a billionaire. They wouldn't listen to the fact that he was reading a teleprompter on a TV show. But they believed that. And now, if the secret sauce of my 401k is doing great is no longer there will be political ramifications to it.
Joel, you were nodding a lot.
Yeah, as far as I was just thinking about Jerome Powell and lowering interest rates, and that's the populist playbook. That's just like, how can I have free money right now in the short term?
But is there anything that he could do that would reassure people?
If he brought more experts into the fold, if they started actually building facilities that were like there are, for example, 3,000 fake abortion clinics in our country right now. They're called pregnancy crisis centers. They serve no medical purpose. Why not turn those into places where you can test people for coronavirus and treat people for coronavirus? That would be a really productive way to deal with fake abortion clinics. Thanks, a couple women and guys. Or just fine. Best Buy, Barnes & Noble, shuttered retail stores. There's a lot of dead malls out there. There are a lot of dead malls and places that you could be like, you have these symptoms, go here so that you're not going to the hospitals and you're not getting people, you're not making people sick who have to go to hospitals for other reasons. WeWork is a great one. What we do best is have, shuttered retail facilities in our country right now. And we don't really export much anymore. So I think there's an opportunity to be creative and really tackle this, but we have to be facts forward and data driven and listen to our medical experts.
Like Jared Kushner and Mike Pence.
Would the testing make things really better? Or
yes,
hold on. Because if the numbers spike, would that make? I mean, because
are you saying that ignorance is bliss in this situation?
No, if the numbers spike, it shows you actually what the fatality rate, which they're thinking is in some countries it's 3.4 or something.
Well, not really. They just suspended the whole season.
Because they are being proactive.
Because 50,000 people in an arena. I don't have a guy right now.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit because I want to ask that question. Are there Republicans in the party right now in office that you agree with, that you like? There
are people who occasionally show a flash of independence, But the Republican Party that I knew, that I worked for a long time, was about the Constitution, the rule of law, fiscal discipline, individual integrity and character. Those things are now very, very absent in the party. It's been
And a small tent.
It's been taken over.
And a small tent.
Well, let him finish. Let him answer.
I'm sorry. I was one of the guys that was.
Go ahead, say it.
No, I was one of the guys in this party that went out into blue states and purple states and blue districts and purple districts and elected Republicans. Oh, and you know what? Some of them were women. Some of them were minorities. And I'm sorry that people like me warned the party that if you don't change course, like during the famous autopsy, if you don't change course and stop acting like assholes to African Americans and stop acting like assholes to Hispanics, you're going to lose their votes forever. Now, you know what's happened? We've lost 600 seats since Donald Trump got elected, in part because those groups are now completely gone to the GOP.
Are you still registered as a Republican?
I just voted in the Republican primary in the state of Florida so I could vote against Donald Trump 2 times this year. But I'm going to re-register as an independent. I was waiting for that moment.
See, the one thing, because I'm sort of like a new conservative, because I was a Democrat in 2007. I was a Hillary supporter until they decided to make everything that Hillary and Bill say racist because of Barack Obama. But what I have seen, and this is the party that Rick was part of, and that is gone. Based on him, is that there was a lot of individuals of color, of minority that didn't seem welcome, that didn't feel as if they were part of or wanted to be part of the party. So when I say or when I hear Rick say, "Well, we need to go back there," I don't understand going back there, because if you look at the party right now, as 2020, and I'm going to rein it in, as of 2020, there are no black people in Congress on the Republican side, in the House, and only one in the Senate. And the Republican Party has had a hard problem with that, and it didn't start with Trump.
But I'm sure Charlottesville helped.
No. It's been like that for a long time, too.
Look, that
the Democratic Party was pretty racist.
That's
in
a
the 60s
long running.
too,
Look, Wayne, I don't disagree with you. That's been
but
a
they
long running
also
issue.
welcomed a whole lot of people, women and minorities in too. So I mean, yes,
I'm not defending the Republican Party. I'm just saying everybody was racist and still is. And politics aside, that's something hopefully we can all agree on and change. Keep going. I didn't mean to talk over you.
But with the Democrats, at least they had a plan. If the Republicans would have fought in the 60s and 70s for the votes, then we wouldn't see the split that it is right now.
Well, you know, you go back to 1952, where Richard Nixon gave a speech about the urgency of desegregation in the country.
Mm-hmm.
There was a long arc in the party. You had Nixon telling the Klan to go fuck themselves.
Yeah,
you had Reagan telling the Klan go fuck themselves.
And Eisenhower.
When I worked for George H.W. Bush, he sent guys like me down to Louisiana to help the Democrat beat David Duke in 1991.
This is a low bar.
You know,
telling the Klan to go.
And I don't want to be on a panel talking about how not racist the Republican Party is, because that's not my expertise.
That's your role right now.
But I don't think.
Look, you planted your flag.
I don't think that Donald Trump's handling of Charlottesville
white men.
I have noticed that. I'm also bald.
On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California. She had been arrested at a beachside restaurant for failing to pay a tab and taken to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station.
You know, I mean, she's not from that area, and I would hate to wake up to a morning report, girl lost somewhere with her head chopped off.
The police released her just after midnight with no car, no cell phone, no money.
She doesn't know the area. She's never been in your area. Well, I think she's depressed. That's what has me more.
That's worried you more than just her. Okay.
Mitrice disappeared into the darkness and was never seen alive again. I'm Catherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up? I am Machine Gun Kelly, and look, I know Halloween is going to suck this year because there's no trick-or-treating and all that, but I've got a treat. There's a musical podcast that I made with my friends 24K Golden, Ian Dior, and Dana Dentata, and Satan. Well, Satan's not my friend, but Tommy Lee is, and Tommy Lee is playing Satan. But don't just take it from me. Tell him, Satan.
Thanks, dude. It feels great to be playing Satan on this podcast. This Halloween, listen to Halloween in Hell on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts on. Soundtracks available on Spotify or wherever you stream your music. But I mean, like, everybody's got a podcast these days. But what would I know? I'm Satan, for God's sakes. Don't even get me started.
I selfishly am sort of enjoying the little rift in the Republican Party right now, but I want to shift gears real quickly and talk about the rift, or maybe not the rift, that's in the Democratic Party that we saw this week with, what do they call it, Big Tuesday? Not Super Tuesday? Super Tuesday 2. We got another question from the audience. Introduce yourself and give us the question you have for everybody.
Patrick, given the recent consolidation before Super Tuesday to help propel Biden's delegate lead, what other shifts in the state of play can be done to cement Biden's position? And then also, what more can Bernie do to stay relevant?
Well, he's done.
Well, let's give a little background, since I jumped right into that, because I was really starting to worry about Wayne jumping across the table. So I wanted to shift gears. But we obviously saw another big win for Joe Biden on Tuesday night. Mississippi by a huge margin, Missouri, Michigan. Mm-hmm. He won Idaho as well. Mm-hmm. Washington, maybe it's tied.
Still recount.
It's very close.
It's mail ballot, so it takes a while.
So there's been a big week for Biden, 2 big weeks for Biden. Where, Joel, let me go to you first with this. Where does that leave us? Is Bernie finished?
Yes.
And
we don't need to talk about this anymore.
Okay.
It's just, again, math.
Well, listen. This is a question, a very important question that our audience, several members of the audience had before we started, which is what's next then? Bernie gave a speech this week and did not. He gave a speech today. We're obviously recording this on Wednesday, and didn't drop out of the race. Yeah. But what was your impression of that speech, Joel?
If you think about when Bernie, I interviewed him for Business Week 4 years ago. I spent a little time following around. If you think about why he entered the race 4 years ago, it was to get his message out. He didn't think he had a chance. He was a backbencher, who wasn't even part of the party. And I think he still wants to get his message out. So if he can go to a debate on Sunday and get a little more airtime for his beliefs, great. But I think he sees the math. I mean, I don't think he's in this to win it at this point.
But then why not? So you're saying you think that he's just doing it for the sake of getting his message across, but he certainly handled it differently today in his speech than he did
he knows
in 2016.
Yeah. It wasn't over in 2016
when he continued fighting, right?
Yeah.
But what do we see in 2016? A lot of people. Again, another message that I got from quite a few members of the audience. Why don't you introduce yourself and give us your question?
Hi, I'm Jena. So I've been seeing a lot of division between the Sanders and Biden supporters, particularly online. I'm not sure if that's reflective of reality or not. Sometimes it's not. But if Biden does continue his trajectory and wins the nomination, what can he do to win over particularly the Bernie or bust folks to make sure that they actually show up and support him on Election Day?
Well, I want to follow up the question that, particularly for Rick, just because you know more about politics and the math of it. Is it important to win over the Bernie people, or is it more important to win over the more independent voters in the Midwest and Florida?
So, first off, it's done. Biden's going to win Florida. That's the ball game. It's over. There is no mathematical scenario where Bernie magically gets, and especially because the superdelegate rules, which Bernie wanted after 2016, make it impossible. It's done. Alexa, order a fork.
Jenna's face right now is like, I'm the comedian. I'm the comedian on the panel.
This election is over in 35 states. It's done. I know how California is going to vote. I know how Mississippi is going to vote. I know how New York is going to vote, and I know how North Dakota is going to vote, okay? 35 states, ball game's over. The idea that the Bernie coalition was going to turn out an enormous number of young people and an enormous number of Hispanic voters and an enormous number of progressive working class voters has been disproven in every single race, including in the states Bernie won. Even in California, the majority of Bernie's vote was over 45 years old. There's a secret in politics. It's a really simple secret. Old people vote.
I thought you were going to say nobody likes women. Because that's what you could, deduce from the Hillary versus Bernie thing. It wasn't that people were afraid of socialism. They were just not into Hillary.
Isn't it crazy about the nobody likes women where Elizabeth Warren drops out, but you still have Tulsi Gabbard in, but the media
Don't say her
anything.
name 2 more times.
They don't.
She could appear. Keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Don't even invoke it. It's not. That's not.
She's still in the race.
Here's the thing. Here are the two things about whether you got to win the Bernie voters back. If Donald fucking Trump isn't enough to turn you out in 2016 or 2020, no matter who the Democratic nominee is, then you're not a Democrat, you're not a progressive, you're a fucking anarchist. You don't care about anything except watching the fire rise. The second thing is, in those states that are up for grabs in the Electoral College, which is the only game in town, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes. You know what? That and $5 gets you a latte, okay? There's nothing about the popular vote that matters. The Electoral College is all that matters. So if you don't go out and win Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Arizona, Virginia, North Carolina, states like that are purple on a good day and red most of the time, those states are not woke. Those states are not hotbeds of progressivism. There is no army of progressives hiding in the cornfields of Wisconsin ready to come out for Bernie to march the aristocrats to the guillotine. It doesn't exist. Those states are moderate states. So you got to have somebody that can turn those people out, and you got to get back those Obama Trump voters. Those guys were union members. They were white male union members in the northern tier industrial states. So
Jena, I want to get Jena in because Jena, you had an answer to her question in general. How does Biden appeal to Bernie voters? I get the sense that maybe some people on the panel don't think that matters. If it matters, if you think it matters, or if not, A, does it? And B, do you want to answer her question that way?
I think Biden's campaign strategy is should be to just not talk. And I think
you're not even wrong.
I'm not, yeah. And I think in terms of, I think that has to come from the top, from Bernie. I think Bernie's base follows him. It's a personality cult. And he's done a lot of really great things pushing our country.
Really?
Pussy. You guys, I can't say pussy. All right. So he's done really great things pushing our country
Just got a little E next to our podcast.
to the left. But if you look at the thing, you would think that there would be less divide between his base and Warren's base, given that they have such similar platforms, and that became so acrimonious. And so I don't think that it's Biden's responsibility, or I don't even know if he'd be able to get Bernie's base on board. I think that has to come from Bernie. I think that has to come from progressives. And you are seeing female progressives who were stumping for Bernie saying how they will vote for Biden in the general. AOC just said that. Linda Sarsour just said that. That message is kind of slowly trickling out, but I also think a lot of his diehards will vote for him even after he's dead. There will be a hologram Bernie running in 28 or whatever. Can't do the math. That they
Joel's category
will vote for. But I'm just saying, I think it can't come from Biden, and I don't know if Biden is capable of anything other than shutting the fuck up and beating Trump and letting other people talk for him.
Not a fan of Biden? Or?
I'm not a fan of Biden, but I'm not.
That's his slogan.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I am a fan of Elizabeth Warren. I am a fan of the progressive movement that is slowly infiltrating, the rest of the Democratic Party. I will excitedly vote for Biden against Trump, but I also see the need for, acting really quickly on climate change, universal health care, all the things that the more progressive branch of the Democratic Party is trying to push for.
Okay, well then...
And I think he might get Me Too'd, which is fine. He's not as bad as Trump.
But it seemed like there was some consensus on the panel, at least, that there's no need to appeal to the Bernie audience when it comes for Biden to be able to win.
I'm just saying it's not from Biden. People will need to appeal to them, but it won't be him. It will be people that they talk to and that they trust.
But Joel, you seem to think there's not, and I correct me if I'm misinterpreting what you said. It sounds like Rick and Joel, you don't think it's necessary.
I don't either.
So
it's not necessary. It helps.
Did Bernie waste his time then? What's the point in getting the message out if no one's going to listen to
Bernie
it?
is a classic singing to the choir guy. He is, the people that love Bernie live in states that are already going to vote Democratic. Massachusetts is going to go Democratic no matter what. New York, California, Oregon, Washington, a handful of other states.
He won North Dakota.
Those places, but it's a Democratic primary with like 8 people.
But in an election that's as close as last time, like in Wisconsin, you can't afford anything.
It's a game of small numbers.
Yeah.
And again, look, I've done a lot of work in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. Those states, Republicans stole seats from Democrats in those states for 20 years because you know what we did? We went out and talked to Democratic union members who were dudes.
I thought you were going to say gerrymandering.
We went out. How's that working in a statewide?
I'm just meaning in general, stealing, but keep going.
Well, now do California and Maryland and others and New York and show me the German. Both sides play that game.
Speaking of preaching to the choir, I'm
Maryland.
a North Carolina voter. You don't have to convince me to believe
you've been to that rodeo
when you make that argument that those states are important. What I'm asking though is if Biden is able to win this election without paying attention to Bernie's voters and courting them now, did Bernie waste his time in trying to get that message across?
Here's the thing. Bernie's voters didn't vote.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct.
He can fill up these arenas. I mean, you think it's the third coming of Cocoon, for the thing. But
everybody has gotten a laugh now tonight. Everyone, congratulations.
But when you see, when it's time to vote, all those people, he should have been able to run circles around Biden with all those people. And it's like they went there to have a great carnival time. Yeah, Bernie. And then they sat at home. And now Bernie's like, well, it's revolution.
So, Jen, are you ever going to get this climate change action that you want? Joel, are these progressive?
I don't think Bernie wasted his time.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
think of it in the last, quickly, in the last 4 years, where he's moved this conversation, the things he's introduced, that just the whole idea.
Other people too, like Warren.
But again, starting 4 years ago, we weren't talking about
that's the truth.
Debt forgiveness for college. We weren't talking about universal health care. Like he was an ignored backbencher who changed the conversation. So it's a movement. He didn't change. He wasted his time.
Yeah, no, I was going to just do a little callback to coronavirus as we talk about who votes. Do you think that that's going to change anything in terms of who's going out to the polls if we have a pandemic that's disproportionately striking older people?
Until November? Through November, you think?
Well, remember the Spanish flu in 1918 went away.
I don't remember that personally.
Well, I am just about that old. No, in 1918, the Spanish flu faded away in the springtime and came back in the fall with a vengeance. Now, that doesn't mean this is necessarily going to repeat that pattern, but it has been known to happen. I will tell you this, anybody who thinks that the Trump team and the Republicans are not going to go out and do a massive vote-by-mail absentee ballot program to old voters who are going to be scared of going out to the polls is out of their mind. They will do that. The Democrats had better be up on their game.
And I'm sure the Democrats will do the same thing.
They better be up on their game if they want to.
But you know what? My thing with Joe Biden, because last year I was saying Biden was going to be the nominee. People were like, no. Biden's going to be the nominee. Biden was the only candidate up there that could win the black vote.
Well, we've seen that.
Whether you believe it or not, he was the only one that they listened to, the only one that they really trust it, whatnot. But now, if Biden wants to win, and I'm a conservative, and I said I would never ever vote Democrat again. But if Biden wants to win, Biden's going to get a female minority vice presidential candidate and put her on stage with Barack Obama when they go through those states. If they do that, Trump's going to have a hard time no matter what the economy or whatnot is, because once you see Biden and Obama back on stage again, that's going to, kind of
powerful
shake
callback.
up the base.
Yeah.
And if you have that minority woman, female, it doesn't have to be black, it could be Latino, it could be Asian, whatever. But if you have that in there,
Very open.
Right, yeah.
Joel, your response in general to the VP. Since we're going down the VP path, since we seem to have determined that we've got a nominee now. Joel, do you want to respond to his?
Well, I do, but I also have a question. Do people vote on the VP, or is it completely irrelevant?
They will with that one.
Well,
Tim Kaine. That was my.
you know that T-shirt. I still remember that.
The thing about Tim Kaine was the smoldering sensuality of Tim Kaine.
I wanted a male president, and so I wanted a male vice president, and so I was like Tim Kaine.
Vice presidents traditionally do not do as much as people think they do for tickets. They don't really provide, the old idea of, we've got to have so-and-so to win the South, and this guy will balance the regional balance. That spell was broken when Bill Clinton, a guy from Arkansas, named Al Gore, a guy nominally from Tennessee, as his
same
VP.
age or something.
Right, exactly. So they didn't. So that idea that you needed somebody who was either regionally or politically balancing, I think, is over. I do think Wayne's right. Joe Biden would strongly benefit. He's already proven he can turn out the African American vote in very significant numbers. I think he would definitely benefit from a female VP candidate or an African American VP candidate or both would probably be a very powerful message.
Just spitballing, what would happen if he picked like Stanley McChrystal? What if he went the other way, picked like a white male general? How does that affect like the Midwest and Florida?
Well, that and you look at some of the target states, Florida and Arizona are two of the biggest veterans populations in the country. And a guy like McChrystal has a degree of foreign policy and military gravitas that is definitely missing in the Trump era from senior ranks now that Jim Mattis has fled the scene.
Can he survive any potential backlash from his own party if he doesn't balance the ticket with some sort of diversity, though?
Once again, the VP will be running against Mike Pence, the whitest human being in the universe.
Assuming he doesn't get blamed for coronavirus and get kicked off the ticket. And we like to end the episode with a little segment we call Pull the Plug, where we ask everyone on our panel to tell us something about something that they are currently working on or pitching, and in exchange for doing that, they have to pitch something of someone else's, something that they like right now in popular culture. It can be in politics, it can be a book, or whatever. So, Rick, you are on the edge of your seat. I'll start with you.
I'm going to shamelessly pitch my own book, Running Against the Devil, a New York Times bestseller, but what the hell? It's
very highly reviewed.
Thank you, sir. It's a guidebook to beating this guy. It's some very tough love. And the thing I want to pitch from the outside is the Center for Disease Control's coronavirus website, which is actually very, very chock full of reasonable things to keep yourself safe in this particular moment we're in.
Cool. I'm going to pitch none of my upcoming live dates, because save yourself. But they're in other, I'm not even going to tell you about them. But I do have a show on Adult Swim called Soft Focus. We're shooting another one soon. Maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? We're all going to die. And then I want to just give a shout out to two things. One, my favorite infectious disease specialist. His name is Dr. Amish Adalja, and he works at Johns Hopkins, and he's just brilliant. And then Sarah Kendzior is a really brilliant expert on authoritarianism. She and my friend Andrea Chalupa have a podcast called Gaslight Nation, and Sarah has a book coming out, and it's called, I haven't read it yet, clearly it's not out yet, but it's called Hiding in Plain Sight, and they've been such a breath of fresh air during this slip into fascism. So the podcast is Gaslit Nation.
I'm going to plug my own book, right?
Please,
Is that what you
yes.
do?
No,
All right.
that's
It's
what we
called
wanna hear.
In Defense of Elitism, Why I'm Better Than You and You're Better Than Someone Who Hasn't Bought This Book. And I'll plug it.
But you went and lived. You stayed in Texas. What was the name of the town?
I did. I went to Miami, Texas, which had it's in the county, Roberts County, Texas, which had the highest percentage of Trump voters in the country.
And you spent how long there?
I was there for a week.
About all you could handle.
No, I would have liked to stay for more. They were really cool, really nice, and I learned a lot from them. And I thought I would just learn things from them that I could like stitch on a doily and put in my kitchen, and I would teach them about the world. But it didn't quite work out that way.
Okay, so that's your book, and
That's
then
my book. I'll pitch. I'll plug Rick's book.
Well, that was very gracious of you. Okay, Wayne.
I like to plug the United States military. And
wait, that's what I'll go with that. AIDS babies. AIDS babies? Is it too late for AIDS babies? Damn it.
On my way over here, because I served in Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield during my fighting weight, But there was a guy that sat right next to me that served over in the same area that I did. And we've just talked about that area, so I want to give a shout out to all of the military branches and all of the job that they're doing. And I'll also pitch in real quick, if you want great ribs,
Great ribs.
Take off the back, put your seasoning on there, wrap it in parchment.
You're from Maryland. What do you know
wrap
about
it in
barbecue?
parchment paper, really tight. Then wrap it with aluminum foil. Put it in the oven 300 degrees for 3 hours. Take it out. Put some barbecue sauce on it.
Recipe.
You got
This
it.
is your cooking podcast.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I don't know if I'm going to take
That
barbecue
cooking will
advice
unite
from
us all.
anybody from Maryland. I don't think I can handle that.
Food brings all of us
Yes.
together.
That's true.
That answers the question.
That's true. And then your show.
And I plug that. But to plug some others, to plug something else, I want to plug CNBC. Yes, I do.
And tell us why.
I want to plug CNBC because I've been able to watch them and their finance and what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks with this whole mess. And they are more non-political and more into telling people what is going on with their money. And if you want to see somebody that is telling the truth about what's going on with these businesses, CNBC is doing it. Forget everything else. Fox, all them, CNBC is really on point with that.
That was Ron and Sana's rib recipe. I wasn't going to call you out on that, but
Jim Cramer's fried chicken is delicious.
I will plug this podcast, which we are now in the second week of, and I have to say this was my favorite episode. And I do seriously mean that. Next week we have the Majority Report's Sam Cedar, Breitbart Joel Pollack, gun rights activist Antonia Okafor, and Congressman Ted Lieu will be with us next week also. And we hope we will all be able to be in a room together. Joel probably won't be joining us.
Cancel it now.
Joel, Stein, Wayne Dupree, Jena Friedman, and Rick Wilson. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Follow at Politicon on all social media and go to politicon.com for information on how to reserve your seat to see How the Heck live. If you've got a question for us on Politicon's How the Heck Are We Going to Get Along, come to a show. Or if you can't make it, email us at podcast@politicon.com. Subscribe to Politicon's How the Heck Are We Going to Get Along on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
After you listen to today's podcast, here's one to add to your playlist. I'm Christian O'Connell, and I've had this thought for a while. What if you took the world's funniest and most interesting people?
Hello, I'm Ricky Gervais.
Celeste Barber. Some people call me Beyonce.
I'm Russell Brand.
And asked them to share the stories behind their 3 most treasured items.
No doubt about it, the guitar. I think I know the same chords now as I did when I was 14.
From iHeartRadio, this is The Stuff of Legends. Add it to your playlist for free. Just search for Stuff of Legends in your podcast app.
What's up? I am Machine Gun Kelly, and look, I know Halloween is going to suck this year because there's no trick-or-treating and all that, but I've got a treat. There's a musical podcast that I made with my friends 24K Golden, Ian Dior, and Dana Dentata, and Satan. Well, Satan's not my friend, but Tommy Lee is, and Tommy Lee is playing Satan. But don't just take it from me. Tell him, Satan.
Thanks, dude. It feels great to be playing Satan on this podcast. Listen to Halloween in Hell on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts on.